Welcome to the TNT Honda podcast. Whether you're buying a new or used vehicle, servicing and maintaining your current vehicle, or following the latest trends in the auto industry, TNT Honda is steering you straight. Thanks for listening, and let's get on with the show. Today we're talking about the main reasons to buy a hybrid Honda. Now, Rose, what is a hybrid? Can you explain exactly what makes a hybrid vehicle?
So a hybrid, basically what the name says, it is a hybrid or a cross between two types of vehicles. The two general types of vehicles available in the market right now are your traditional ICE vehicles, is what they're called. ICE stands for internal combustion engine, the cars we've all grown up and loved over many, many, many years. And then there's the new variety of vehicles, the BEV, as in battery electric vehicle. So let me give a little bit of context here. So there's a huge push right now from a lot of governments, including our own Canadian government, with regards to greenhouse gases. So for those who are not familiar, greenhouse gases are produced by the burning of fossil fuels, so petroleum. With these greenhouse gases, they basically envelop the earth and allow the earth's temperature to raise by fractions of degrees or degrees. And by doing so, it's actually affecting the climate on our globe. So this is not just a Canada thing. It's not a US thing. It's a worldwide thing. So a lot of the major governments have gotten together and have come up with various different environmental strategies or accords to try and reduce and to eventually eliminate greenhouse gases. In particular, the Canadian government, one of the focus areas that they have is that they want to make sure that we are at the forefront of electric vehicles. Why? Because the electric vehicles actually don't produce any greenhouse gas emissions. So when I say that, those are the battery electric vehicles. Now, that is a completely radical technology to the internal combustion engines that we're familiar with. So there's a lot of research and retooling that needs to take place for us to move from the regular internal combustion vehicles. I'm just going to call them ICE from this point forward. The regular ICE vehicles to the battery vehicles. So the in-between step is this hybrid. And to answer your question, basically what a hybrid is, it has a gas motor as well as a battery. And the two work together to move the car.
How long have hybrids been around?
So I want to tell you, Honda's first hybrid was the Insight, and that came out in the early 90s. So that was the test bed for a hybrid. But hybrids have been gaining more and more popularity over the years as this push from the governments has taken place, and as the environmental movements have taken hold.
So what are the advantages of driving a hybrid vehicle?
Main thing is the better fuel efficiency. So if you're in a hybrid vehicle, because there's a gasoline engine along with an electric engine, an electric motor, the electric motors are efficient, and of course they don't burn fuel. So the example of our Clarity, it's a plug-in hybrid, and we'll talk about the differences there shortly. But with the Clarity, you can actually run in electric-only mode for up to 77 kilometers.
Oh, wow.
What that means is you're actually not using any gas. So I was on a couple of websites just doing some quick calculations. If somebody was to drive a Clarity right now and they were doing approximately 25,000 kilometers a year, average driving, they could see fuel savings of about $3,000 a year.
Wow.
Yeah, because the electric engine will help move the vehicle, and then as and when needed, that's only when the gas engine kicks in.
Right. And how about the performance on a hybrid vehicle?
So with a hybrid vehicle, typically the actual ICE engine, the gas engine, is a touch smaller and specifically designed for the hybrid. But then you've got the electric motor there to compensate you for power. And for those who don't know, the thing that actually moves the vehicle is not the horsepower, but the torque, the twisting motion. Electric motors have immediate torque. So what that means is it actually helps you get going right away. So there's actually some supercars out there, like Acura has our NSX. It's actually got two hybrid motors in it, along with a regular internal combustion engine. And man, that thing moves.
Some people have a perception of the hybrid kind of more like a golf cart than a performance vehicle. So it's good to know.
Not to say that some aren't designed that way. However, hybrid doesn't necessarily mean that you have no performance.
Right. And how does the hybrid engine impact your maintenance costs?
So the hybrid engine itself is actually way more simple than the gas engine in a vehicle.
Okay.
So the maintenance on that piece is actually less. Of course, you still have to maintain your vehicle with
Hmm.
regards to brakes and stuff like that. But when you talk about a full electric vehicle, for example, there's no oil changes required because there's no
Okay.
oil,
Right.
right? So a simple thing like that. So the maintenance on hybrid vehicles is actually less than on a regular internal combustion engine vehicle.
Okay. And what's the lifespan? Is it different to a regular vehicle?
No, it's the same with regards to longevity and stuff like that. The one thing to keep in mind is there is, of course, a battery pack in
Right.
the hybrids and in the battery electric vehicles, and that battery pack is what provides the energy to move the car, and it's quite big compared to your regular 12-volt battery that's in the vehicle. That from time to time might need to get replaced. We're so early on in the hybrid days, we don't have a good sense of that because battery technology is advancing at a great pace right now.
Hmm.
So they're getting smaller, they're getting more efficient, they're able to pack more power into every cell. The future is bright on what happens with these battery electric vehicles and the hybrid vehicles.
And what about resale value? Does it match to the ICE vehicles?
Yeah, and again, there's not too much information we have right now because hybrid vehicles are a fairly new phenomenon.
Yes.
But in my opinion, I don't see them as having any more or less value down the road
Right.
versus a regular ICE vehicle. A lot of people nowadays are actually asking here in the showroom, oh, does this come in a hybrid? Does that come in a hybrid?
Ah,
Is a hybrid available? That kind of thing,
that's good to hear. That's positive news for the environment for sure.
for sure.
Are there any disadvantages? Is it more expensive to buy a hybrid?
Yeah, so the initial price, again, because it is a relatively new technology,
Hmm.
there is a bit of a premium that customers pay to drive a hybrid vehicle. However, over time, that should equalize and I think at some point tip to the favor of the
Right.
hybrids and the battery as the governments push more and more. So, one of the things, for example, going back to talk about the government, by the year 2040,
Hmm.
they want 100% of light duty vehicles sold in Canada to be electrified.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
that's
So there's a
great.
huge push there.
Yeah.
And Honda Canada has said that their goal is by the year 2030
Hmm.
that two-thirds of the fleet will be electrified. And what I mean is either a hybrid or a battery electric vehicle, some kind of electric motor in the vehicle to help reduce the fuel consumption.
Amazing. Now, I'm putting you a bit on the spot here, but how many hybrid models does Honda offer? Like, if we were to come to TNT Honda and
Mhm.
look, what sort of options do we have? Is it very limited, or how does it compare to the ICEs?
So we've actually got three.
Okay.
So the first one, I guess you'd call it kind of the entry level one, is the Insight. Kind of looks like a cross between the Accord and a high end Civic.
Ah,
Beautiful vehicle, and that is a hybrid vehicle as well. And that's our entry level hybrid. The next one that we have is the actual Accord hybrid.
okay.
And then kind of like the big daddy is called the Clarity.
Okay.
So the Clarity is a plug-in hybrid vehicle, which we haven't talked a lot about.
Yeah.
So there's two types of technology available at the moment when it comes to recharging the battery.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the Insight and the Accord hybrid use a technology called regenerative braking.
Okay.
So when you're slowing down the car, normally you press on the brake pedal,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's what slows you down. With sorry, this is hard to say. Regenerative braking, what happens is as the vehicle is slowing down, the energy that's coming from the vehicle slowing down is actually regenerating the electric motor, the battery.
Amazing.
So it's kind of charging itself up as you're slowing down. So that's what happens on the hybrid as well as on the Insight. With regards to the Clarity, it's a plug-in hybrid vehicle.
Right.
So a lot of times you'll see on YouTube or whatever people plugging in their car.
Mm-hmm.
The Clarity is one of those.
Okay.
But does it use regenerative braking? It actually uses a plug-in charger that people would have at their home or at the mall or whatever the case is to give the battery its energy.
Right.
And across Canada, there's been a huge initiative to increase the infrastructure of these
Mm.
charging stations. But again, that's one thing that the government is putting a lot of resources behind because they do see that this is the way of the future.
And that's, I guess, the peace of mind with a hybrid is if you are going on a little bit of a longer trip and you can't get the recharge, you can rely on the fuel. Is that correct? You don't have to have
That's
equal
exactly
balance.
correct. And that's one of the big advantages of the hybrid. What you referred to there, the term has been called range anxiety.
Okay.
So
Yes.
this range anxiety, when you're in a battery only vehicle, you have a certain limited finite range.
Right.
It could be a few hundred kilometers or, however, once the battery runs out, you're done,
Mm-hmm.
right? So how do you charge it unless there's infrastructure there for charging? Versus with a hybrid, you do have the ability to, go into your corner gas station, fill up, and off you go again.
So here we are, Calgary, right now. Today it is snowing like crazy, and it's
Yep.
the season of jump starts and calling AMA for your battery when it starts to get minus 30 and all of that
Mhm.
kind of stuff. So, how does the climate here in Calgary affect a hybrid or an electric vehicle?
Batteries generally have issues with cooler temperatures.
Okay.
Okay. But of course, there's things that engineers can do to work around that, which obviously they do on the vehicles. However, when you look at a more temperate climate than ours, the battery pack itself could theoretically last a little bit longer there
Right.
than it might in Calgary, where we have more cold days and stuff like that.
Mhm.
However, that being said, I'm thinking back to 2006, 2005, when the Civic Hybrid first came out. We sold quite a few of them. And just now, this is what, 2020? Just now, we're starting to see some of the cars come back in because they need a battery pack replacement. So what is that, 14 years,
Wow.
15 years?
That's
So
impressive.
that's pretty good,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And these cars have the one I saw just a few days ago, it had about 420,000 kilometers on it.
Amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Car did not look that great. However,
It's seen
it's
some
still running.
things. That's incredible. So,
Yeah.
what sort of lifestyle is optimal for a hybrid vehicle?
Great question. So the hybrid vehicles are really designed for your city drivers
Mm-hmm.
because where it really shines compared to an ICE vehicle is when you are doing all the stop and go driving,
Right.
right? Because in most cases with the stop and go driving, it's the electric side of the hybrid that's moving the vehicle. So you're
Yes.
not using gas. And that's where the big benefits are. Versus if you're cruising on the highway, the demands of power that you need, the
Mm-hmm.
electric motor won't be able to keep up. So you're always sipping on the gas.
Right. Right.
So stop and go driving, city driving, those are ideally suited for hybrid type vehicles.
Are there specific incentives for choosing a hybrid versus an ICE?
Yes, there are. So again, from the government's point of view, both federally as well as provincially, there are rebates available.
Mm-hmm.
So in the case of the Clarity, the government of Canada has up to $5,000 rebate on that car
Okay.
when you purchase it. So it does make the vehicles more affordable than they should be, I guess,
Right.
because the government has this push on making people try and get to a zero emission type of environment.
Right.
So yes, there are federal programs available.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned, it is up to $5,000 from the government of Canada.
Okay. And are there any new models coming out anytime soon, or what is the latest model that people should be coming to TNT Honda to test drive?
And so it would be the Clarity.
Mm-hmm.
However, over the next probably 2 years or so, I'm sure we're going to see at least a couple of models that come through.
Oh, exciting.
So I know there's been significant talk about a actual electric vehicle that Honda is working on from the ground up.
Amazing.
There is a model available overseas. It's called the Honda EV.
Yes.
Cute little car, kind of retro styling.
Yes.
Very neat car. Unfortunately, we're not going to see that here in North America. But if you look at that, I'm sure we're going to see something that will work for our environment here and our driving habits. As well, there are going to be a lot more hybrid variants available as the new models come out. So when the new CRV comes out in a couple of years, there will be a hybrid variant on that one. Yeah.
So what should people keep in mind when they're looking for a hybrid?
I guess the whole talk about hybrid and battery electric vehicles, it's not so much about the car, it's about your philosophy.
Okay.
So there's people out there who are like, oh, I would never drive a hybrid car. I love my V8 Chevy or whatever the case is, right? And that's great. But remember, what we're doing here, what the governments are trying to do is make this a place that is going to be sustainable for our kids, their kids, their grandkids, and so on. So we're not going to see any changes in our lifetime.
Right.
However, when we try and take a little bit longer term approach, we know that we're harming the environment and therefore directly harming ourselves and our
Yes.
environment. Um, so I know you're from the UK. You probably know a gentleman by the name of David Attenborough,
Oh, yes.
right? So I just recently watched his film. So he's 93 years old right now. And for those who don't know, he's very much grown up with nature all around him. And it was interesting, this story. It's called Life on Our Planet. He kind of chronicles his 93 years of life and what we've done to the environment in those short 93 years.
Yes.
How much of the environment we've actually destroyed by our own hands. So it was quite shocking and eye-opening,
Yeah.
the way that he had laid it out. It's on Netflix, if anybody's interested. But that really drove the point home, because my thought always was, well, our gas prices are not that high. The premium that you pay for driving a hybrid vehicle is several thousands of dollars.
Right.
So to see that payback period in gas savings is going to take, depending on your driving habits and the price of gas, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. Right. So is a hybrid really worth it? But that's one way to look at it, is on the economic side, which is how I used to look at it. However, after looking into it further, and specifically after watching this film, it's not about the fuel savings. It's not about the economics of it. It's about the legacy that we leave for the future.
Yes.
Right. And I think that's really the point that needs to be driven home. Why are the manufacturers, why are the governments so hot and heavy about moving towards a more sustainable type of fuel?
Yeah.
It's so that we have a future for ourselves and our children and their children.
If you have any questions or would like to learn more about hybrid vehicles at TNT Honda, visit their website, tnthonda.com. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the TNT Honda podcast. We'll be back with lots more for you very soon. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to like, share, and of course subscribe to keep up to date with everything that's going on. In the meantime, check out tnthonda.com and we'll be back with another episode very soon.
'Cause TNT Honda steering you straight.